Hey there, fellow citizen of the internet. Welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast. Today I have with me Nigel, and we're gonna be yapping about foods today, a discipline that I'm really not that familiar with, which is why I have him on the podcast. Nigel, welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Moses. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is all mine. So, paint us a picture of who you are today and what is it that you do, and then we're gonna work backwards to figure out how you ended up where you are today.
Nigel O'Quinn is my name. I born and raised in Saskatchewan, Canada, of all places. So we're talking about like the middle of Canada. I'm a prairie boy. It is flat over there. It gets brutal cold. It also gets brutal warm in the summers. It's all
Mhm.
farmland out there, and you go further north, and you're into some beautiful forestry. You're into beautiful fishing, hunting areas, world class, really. So, that's where I come from, and now I reside in Columbia Falls, Montana. My business,
Mhm.
I started up a business, and we'll talk about that. And my business's mission is connecting people to real food. So we'll do a little bit of a deep dive on that if you like. But with that goal, I started a business just over 4 years ago where I was able to do something really unique and really special and very needed, and elevate people's health in a way that I never saw coming with my nutrition background. And it's brought me now to Columbia Falls, Montana to share this gift with Americans. And it's been changing lives ever since. So, yeah, really excited to be here and share this with you. But my background, I was always a very interested and passionate about sports. And that led me to wanting to understand how our bodies work. Like what is our most optimal fuel for the most optimal development in and
Mhm.
helping athletes, get to the top of their game and perform at the highest levels possible. So I was always interested in what was that optimal fuel and how did our bodies take that in and operate. And so that led me into kinesiology. And, I started down a path of a health and fitness and nutrition major. And then with that, it actually gave me the gift of getting really sick. I had come out the expert, and I say that in air quotes for the listeners not looking at a video here. I came out the expert, like so many other people that go to university and college, and they get their nutrition degrees and they become a nutritionist or, you know, uh,
Mhm.
practitioner of any sort, dietitian in the nutrition realm. And what I became an expert on was the food pyramid, the food guide. And I was learning, I didn't know it then, but what I was actually learning is that I became an expert on how to get myself really, really sick. And I ended up with
Mhm.
digestive issues. I had like the worst guts of my life. I had declining energy. I didn't feel great. I was gassy all the time. There's a visual for all your listeners. Sorry about that. But what ended up happening is I came out this expert, the sickest that I've felt and the worst that I felt. That's when my education really started to begin. And what I learned right away is that I wasn't educated, I was indoctrinated with these this
Mhm.
ideology that was training me to put people into the sick care system that we all know today. So doctors, physicians, they don't the max that they get is what 1 week of training in nutrition. So that's not their focus. Exercise, moving properly, sleep, that's not their focus. Their focus is surgeries and pharmaceuticals. Now, I've got news for your listeners if you haven't figured this out yet, but that is not healthcare. Medicine, uh, prescription drugs is not medicine. Food is actually medicine. That's what our bodies desire. That's what we operate on is real food, is real human beings. That's what we need. We don't have deficiencies in pharmaceutical drugs. We have deficiencies in nutrition, right? In nutrient dense food. And so that's what I was learning is that I was fueling my body on a nutritionally deficient food supply, getting sick, and then wondering, what's going on. And I was myself, the expert, being led to a sick care system where I would have symptoms, and then I would be reliant on a pharmaceutical drug that would, it's kind of like a whack-a-mole game, where you're just hitting one symptom, but inevitably another one's going to pop up, and let's take a drug and hit that one, and then it's just a cascading effect of issues that are going to inevitably come along in your life. And you can only go so far, especially when you're in your 20s, and a lot of it should have pretty good optimal hormone production, and so a lot of it gets masked just because you're young, you've got vitality, energy naturally, but eventually your body's going to break down, and then you're going to be going, well, what am I really going to have to do? Do I have to rely on this pharmaceutical cocktail to have health again, or is there another way? And so I continued my education. I eventually became a functional diagnostic nutritionist, which is a long way to say somebody that looks under the hood, at not just at the smoke and mirrors, the symptoms, but what is the root cause? Like, what actually started this? What is the thing? How do we actually fix this, as opposed to chasing symptoms? So I became that's when I really actually became an expert, because that was then bridging the gap that we had in our nutrition and figuring out root cause protocols to help people get better. And I'll just go ahead and jump to a couple books that I read that really changed my life and kind of guided me in that direction there, Moses. Was two books. One was Deep Nutrition. Essentially what that was telling us that our ancestors actually had a lot more figured out than we do today. That nutrition actually is not supposed to be confusing. Like, when you go into a supplement store, you get quickly overwhelmed and confused. You see all the products, the lineups of products that there are, that the pharmaceutical or the synthetic lab-made world has created for us. We see all these options. It's really confusing. You've got all these diets. You've got vegan, vegetarian, keto, paleo, carnivore, pescatarian. You've got the Mediterranean diet. You've got all this stuff going on, and people are so confused. And actually, our ancestors had it all figured out. Food's actually simple. It actually comes from the land, not the lab. It's actually easy, not convoluted, difficult, and full of proprietary blends, right? So that's what I learned in that book, was eat meat from the bone. And from the bone, you're going to have all this collagen, elastin, this connective tissue that's dense in these building blocks that every single one of our cells, every single one of our nutritional needs and cellular needs require these building blocks that we get from food that comes off of the bone, right? It didn't come from deep within the Amazon, the secret berry that we had to ship up in trucks or whatever it was for all of us to finally have health. No, it was always in the land. It was always in the animals, right? So that's what I learned in that book. And then it was another gentleman, Rob Wolf, that wrote Paleo Solution, and had a riddle of issues as well, and just came back to, well, what are foods that we can harvest ourselves that we've always had? And it's really simple. And some of those sacred foods that we've ditched out of our diets, and that kind of started in the 50s, was organ meats. And so I went on a hunt with my brother and a cousin, and I decided that I was going to harvest everything. I was going to waste nothing from this white-tailed deer that we got. And so there I was collecting the bones. I harvested the heart, the kidneys, I got the liver, and I got that all. And my brother and cousin were looking at me like, what are you doing? What's going on? That's not, we don't collect that stuff. But there I was. And Moses, I don't actually have words to describe this, but when I ate those nutritionally dense foods, the organ meats got back into my diet, I had a surge of energy like I've never felt before. And so there I was, like in my mid
Mm-hmm.
20s, and I actually felt like I was back on my game. I felt like I had the power again. Like I felt like a strong athlete again. The
Mm-hmm.
stuff that was missing from my diet, because I went down this more indoctrinated pathway of grains and vegetables heavy, and then cholesterol, fat, saturated fat became the enemy. So I was really limiting red meat, and there I was with these organ meats back in my diet, and I felt unbelievable. I don't have actual words to describe how I felt. So that was the start of something totally new for me. I was not going to be wasting these things again. I started doing my own bone broths. I started eating red meats of all sorts all over again. I started limiting sugars and carbohydrates. By the way, the body recognizes carbohydrates as sugar. So when it goes in, its actual breakdown is sugar. That's it, right?
Yep.
And limiting like fruits and intakes like that, and just having a better, less inflammatory diet that was more nutritionally dense, and it changed my life. And so, I jumped over this, but in the 50s, they kind of erased, you know, organ meats from the food pyramid. And I always say this, McDonald's kind of rolled into town, and things like organ meats fell out of favor, fell out of the pyramid even.
Mm.
So we're not even looking at these things anymore. And so what ended up happening is, uh, I got, again, long story short, I got married, and then I was ready to build a family. And organ meats have become so amazing in my life that it became a non negotiable. My wife had to consume them. And like many people, my wife, there's no way that I could cook them, that prepare them, that she would eat them. That wasn't going to have them
Mm.
raw.
Mm.
She didn't like the taste, the texture, the smell, like absolutely any bit. And I know a lot of people are like that. They're not going to include organ meats. When there's a ribeye sizzling on the barbecue next to a piece of liver, 10 times out of 10, everyone's going for that juicy ribeye, right? Like it's just a thing, including myself, guilty, right? So the only way that I could get organ meats into my wife's diet was by encapsulating them. So that's what I did. It was a home run. And at this point in time with my nutrition career, I had a bit of a clientele. So said, well, maybe this is a win for them too, to eat whole animal. So
Mm. Mm.
sure enough, it was. And what I didn't realize was the results that were going to come back to me were across the board. I had people that were eating really healthy. I had carnivore, keto, paleo clients that had really, from the outset, everything going for them. Dialed in diets. They were doing really well. They were exercising, sleeping reasonably well as well. So a lot of great things working for them. The results that came back from them after incorporating organ meats into their diets were unbelievable. Energy.
Mm.
I had a couple gentlemen, letting me know that they had morning wood again. So their manhood was back, which is amazing. I had Nadia, who was, had menopausal issues going on. And so hot flashes, just like really tough, better hormone balance because of the building blocks that were now being provided in the body. So better hormone production, leveled out menopausal effects going on. Energy across the board was better. I had Tony that started sleeping better because of the riboflavin that's bioavailable, ready to go in organ meats, unlike anything else that you can't find in synthetics, right? In lab made or plant based multivitamins, multiminerals. They don't even come close. So the results that came back were unbelievable. And so that was actually the start of my business. I clearly recognized, wow, there's a way better way that I can serve people. And that was by connecting them to real food again. That the best, most nutrient dense fuel that our bodies need and should never have left our diet. And there's many cultures today where it didn't, and they're sacred. Organ meats are sacred. In the animal kingdom, they're still sacred. It's the alpha wolf or the pregnant or expectant mothers that get first dibs on the organ meats, right? Uh,
Mm.
Killer
Mm.
whales, they will go and kill and just take the liver, and that's it. They'll leave the rest. They're really prized pieces and real prized foods. And so I recognize that, wow, I can add so much more value by getting people connected to real food again, like our ancestors used to prize and value as sacred foods. And, we've seen nothing but 180s on people's health, even people that, of course, have real diets, but are still missing those super nutrient dense foods that you find in organ meat. So that's where I started. And we do liver, heart, kidney, and spleen, the most important and nutrient dense of all the organ meats that you're going to find in the animal, and we get them back in. And so, again, going back 4.5 years ago, just over 4.5 years ago, I started in Canada. And what we do is we source from regenerative farmers that do grass-fed, grass-finished cattle programs. So the purest of the pure, 100% working with nature and building an ecosystem and respecting that, nothing against it. So they don't interact with any sort of pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, anything like that that will impact the soil negatively or the animals negatively, and then eventually our health negatively. So working 100% with nature, these farmers are, so that the quality is as clean as you can get. What ended up happening is 3 months into business, we had Americans reaching out to see if they could buy, because they love the idea of at least supporting a North American business. Now, I've got a lot of competitors now in this space, and they all go overseas to New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, a lot of different Brazil countries to get their organ meats. But nobody's connected to their farmers and understand that. And I think that that's really important. So that's where we made the commitment to move to Montana. And now I support U.S. regenerative farms that do grass-fed, grass-finished cattle programs only. And everything's done in-house. I've got major food trust issues. So no third-party manufacturers. It's all done in-house here. So we do every single step. It's all handmade, so no fillers, no flow agents, just 100% food that your body recognizes, needs, and benefits from. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. And yeah, it's been incredible to improve the overall health of North America drastically. And we've seen testosterone numbers go up, fertility numbers go up, across the board. We're improving overall health. So that's what we get. And that was a hell of a long rant there, Moses. I apologize. I went all over the place, but there's a little background of who I am and what we're doing.
Okay, that was indeed a healthy dose of information there. So I won't be able to consolidate everything that you just said, but if I can try, it sounds like nutrient density plays a major role here, and then non-processed foods is one thing that you're trying to move people away from. So this question might not do justice to all that you just said, but could you give me one or maybe three of the most, like, the biggest misconceptions that people have about natural foods? So for example, one of the things that can come to mind is, okay, maybe the organic, natural, quote unquote, natural foods, or maybe even removing the quotes, natural foods, might be nutrient dense, but it maybe takes like a much longer time frame to produce them. I don't know. I'm just speaking out of my rear end here, but what are some of the biggest misconceptions that the average individual like myself would have about organic foods?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Moses. Listen, a lot of people think that and there's a major plant-based push going on right now. A lot of people think that they're getting the nutritional value and needs, they're covering their bases by finishing their vegetables, right? By eating their fruits and vegetables. And that's what we're pushing on to our kids. Yet we've got chronic illnesses through the roof and rising with our kids. We've got obesity with our kids. 1 in 5 kids have a mental disorder now. They're on medications. it's never ending. Chronic illness is on the rise, and allergies are on the rise as well. 1 in 12 kids have food allergies now. The biggest myth is that we think that we're covering our bases when we finish our fruits and vegetables. And the reality is that our fruits and vegetables now are coming from depleted soils, right? From
Mm-hmm.
mass agriculture that is not restoring it. It's a it's an extractive process. So every year that soil diminishes in value and nutritional value. And if it's not in the soil, then it cannot possibly be in the produce, in the yields, right? So that's where we focus, and you're so on it, Moses. All of these terms have been hijacked. We think that, oh great, my peas here, or my wheat, my bread, or whatever it is coming from organic. Like that word's been hijacked into being able to allow having these companies that do all these processed foods to charge so much more. But is the value there? No, it's still coming from highly depleted soils. And most people are nutritionally deficient. And when you're operating with nutritional deficiencies, you open up the door to chronic illnesses and breakdown. We're aging faster than we should be because we don't have the building blocks to repair our bodies properly. I guarantee you.
Okay, so
Oh, yeah,
uh,
go ahead.
real quick, because I think that that's something important to reiterate. You're not saying that fruits and veggies are no longer as useful as we once thought that they were. What you're saying is that the lack of rotational agriculture, right, that gives the land, the soil enough time to rebuild those nutrients, that's not taking place. So therefore, the veggies and fruits that we're eating are coming from, well, the same source that is nutrient deficient. So therefore, it's not that the veggies and fruits themselves are not good. It's just that they don't have the nutritional value that we once thought that was there because of the lack of the nutrients from the soil. Is that correct?
Yeah, great question. Two parts to that. Number one, that's right. They're not as nutritionally dense as they used to be. For example, like an orange. You take one orange today, or excuse me, you would need 50 oranges today to have the nutritional equivalency of one orange in 1950.
1950. Cheapers. Okay, that's crazy.
That's how much of a landslide it's been, right? And another thing is you can have a look at our health, and hormone production. I love going into, because if you don't have the building blocks for proper hormone production, it's not happening. And so the nutritional value, the building blocks are not being put into our body, amongst many other factors as well. But we've lost 1% testosterone values for the last 60 plus years, year after year, right? Fertility has seen a 70% drop since 1950s. So we've got
Hmm.
major issues going on with nutritional deficiencies. So number one, the quality of the food is way down. Our soils do not have that to produce the yields that we need and to have the nutritional values that we want in food. But number two is that also we've forgotten the most bioavailable foods for us are not plants, right? So fruits and vegetables are like a plan B. You can have them a little bit, but it actually should never be the focal food for nutrient density, because it will never come close to the meats that we meat and fat, saturated fat and meats. Those are full amino acid spectrum foods. We get everything that we need from them. Plants have never been able to do that for us. We are not ruminant animals. We cannot do what cows and deer can do. They've got the chambers in their stomachs, and they're able to ferment, and they're able to pull nutritional values out of grasses and vegetables that we never can, right? So never should it have been a focal point of our diets. And when we rely on that, we are not going to be working optimally. And I hate to say it,
Mm.
but if you look at the majority of vegan and vegetarian populations, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be incredibly depleted. They age faster, and you're not going to find too many of them that survive on those diets past 5 years. The fall off point is extremely high because it's highly unsustainable and it creates nutritional deficiencies. And that's what happens when we rely on fruits and vegetables to provide our core nutritional needs, right? They inevitably
Mm.
come very low hormone production, poor circulation, so they're frequently cold. They always come in with B vitamin deficiencies, so metabolic processes are not happening. Energy is very low. Many times they're infertile, so they need to rely on IVF treatments. It's just not happening. Why? Because we require cholesterol. Cholesterol comes from animal products. Cholesterol is the building blocks for hormone production. Without cholesterol, you do not get hormone production. And without
Mm.
sex hormones being produced properly, you become infertile. That's what happens. And that's what we see in those diets that are focused on vegetables. So it never should have been a focal point with that. So we don't have the magical abilities that ruminant animals have to pull out the nutrition from plants. We just don't. We never will.
Yeah. So what's because the vegetarian and the vegan community, it is a relatively loud community, let's say, given that in the sense that their message is widely spread, right? For good, for bad, for bad. I don't know. I'm not here to make one case or another, but I'm gonna ask you like, what is can you still man their case that moving away from a primarily carnivorous diet is more beneficial than the other way around? Like, yeah, like what would be their pushback to the point that you just made?
Oh, they have all sorts of misguided pushbacks, I believe.
Okay,
The majority of them have never actually visited the farm where their food is produced. So
why is
I've
that
got
important?
I've got news for everybody that hasn't heard this yet. There's no such thing as veganism. Like, I would believe in the characters of Lord of the Rings before I would believe in veganism. It's totally fake, it's made up. Because I got news for them. They don't like this part, but I see how they're confused because they've never gone to the farms. They don't understand that it's impossible. It's impossible to erase death from the cycle of life. Without death, you don't get life. And in their farming, in the farming that they rely on for their foods, which predominantly is monocrop agriculture, that requires the most death out of any farming practices there are. So for wheat, for soy, for corn, all of these products that they rely heavily on for their vegan diets are the most dependent on death. The reason being is you take a hunter, right? A hunter will go into the forest or an area and they will get their deer, their moose, elk, whatever, and they will bring that back and they will feed their family with that, right? For
Mm-hmm.
monocrop agriculture, you have to destroy an entire habitat. You have to kill everything because if you're going to have a crop of wheat, everything else has to die. So all the insects, all the birds can't be on there. The bees, ruminant animals will no longer be welcome on there. The rabbits, the rodents, the mice, right? Nothing can go on there for these crops to survive. The reason being is because those crops require heavy interventions from human beings. Fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers, they require herbicides, pesticides to keep insecticides to keep these things away for these crops to survive, because nature's always going to fight back. It wants in
mm,
all
mm,
these areas. So you need to kill it for your crop. That's how monocrop agriculture goes. And I know that very, very well because of my background in farming. I was raised around it. Every single one of my cousins currently owns a farm and does monocrop agriculture. I know how this works. I used to be, when I was 19, I used to fill the spray planes, full hazmat suit on. You load these things, and that goes all over your crops to kill everything off except for the crop that you're growing so that you can harvest that. Right? That's why we've got
mm, mm,
glyphosate in everything now in all of these products, because you need that to desiccate the crop, essentially dry it out so that you can hurry up and harvest that before the fall, the end of fall comes, right? So that's all needed. There's so much intervention that's needed in that method of farming. And then you take regenerative agriculture, which is the farming that we rely on. Is you've got a farmer that needs to work 100% with nature. So every single year, the regenerative part is the opposite of extractive, which monocrop agriculture is extractive. You're taking out everything for this one crop. Regenerative, every year, that soil is getting more and more nutrient dense. It's sequestering more and more carbon every single year. It actually holds and retains water. It doesn't just run off because the soil is alive. All the insects are there. They're working. The bees are working within the flowers that are there. The birds come back. They're working the land. All the animals are welcome because there's an entire ecosystem at play here. And that's how the food comes from a regenerative operation. Whereas the vegan way, a lot of death is required for these specific products to happen. So for that conversation to happen, they first need to take the first step and go to the farm and see how their food is made. And that's
mm.
my mission
Okay.
with my
Okay.
business, is connecting people to food, connecting people to real food.
Okay.
And part of that process is understanding how it's actually made and who to give thanks for that. So,
Mm, okay. Okay. So that's it's an interesting point that you make because last I think this episode is already aired. I'm not sure yet. But I had someone on here who they're coming from a different side, right? So and that's part of the spirit that I have with this podcast is I'm just your average Joe. I'm trying to learn as much as I can from different people, and for him and his household, right, the plant-based diet. It's not necessarily being vegan or being vegetarian. Oh, I guess it's vegetarian. I don't know. The plant-based diet allowed him to go from 200 and I think it was like 260 pounds down to about 160. And then his wife tried the same diet, and she too lost a lot of weight. Their kids jumped on board, and next thing you see, all these different health issues that they had were just completely gone away. So for him and his household, the plant-based diet has completely changed how they live, and thankfully reduced drastically the amount of doctor visits that they had to go to and the amount of meds that they had to take. So I know that there is a lot of people that are in that bucket, right? And I said earlier that like these communities are loud, and meaning like we hear more from those communities than we do from the hey, how can we go back to animal-based diet, or find a healthy balance between the two. And so also, as you were talking, that the idea of gorillas came to mind, because I mean they're big and strong and they eat veggies, but of course they're eating all the time, right? Because of that lack of caloric density, right? In plant-based and fruits. So, man, it's what I'm getting from this is that there is some diets that works for some diets that work better for others, and at the end of the day, though, I feel like as long as no one is saying this is the diet to take, absolutely, and there's no ifs or buts about it, or there's like some room for experimentation and being able to hear other people out. The reason I say that is because, at least with the veganism part of it, it can easily become a quasi-religious thing, right? Where it's not that you found a diet that works best for you and your household, and your life has definitely genuinely improved, and you're strong and you're healthy and everything. It's that it becomes a religion, so that anybody that's not part of it, or anybody that says anything against it, it's pitches and forks, right? So that's what we're trying to avoid here. I barely got to trace things back to your childhood and everything, and we're already like at the top of the hour. But I have a question here for you, which is like, how has this approach changed how you live your life? So this diet. I say that because a few months ago I was in Italy, and I love to eat this thing. I think it's called figatona. Anyways, it's just tons of liver, right? I love liver. It's just right. It's just it. I'm also African. I grew up eating the livers, the hearts, the brains of. I mean, so for me, that's, I don't have to think twice about that. It's just, I'm drawn to it, right? So I see the value in that, but for me that works. It works really well, and I love the taste and the texture of meat and everything. So, but for you, how has this message, this diet, the message about this diet changed your life? I think you touched on it already, but I want to like close it off with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Can I add a few other
Yeah,
things
yeah.
to what was, yeah, can I? I
Bring it.
okay, great. I just wanted to cover that because I see that all the time in my nutrition background, all the time. I see the benefits that people always are talking about when they go vegetarian or vegan. And I get it. It's great for weight loss for a lot of people. 9 times out of 10, what they've done is they've cut out a lot of the processed foods that are absolutely laid out with sugar and dyes and just garbage.
Right,
Of
right.
course, you're going to lose weight. Of course, you're going to feel better.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But what's going to happen, and I guarantee this because I've seen it time and time again with hundreds and hundreds of vegetarians and vegans at this point, that you'll hit the end of the road, right? And then your body will be diminished to a point where it can no longer go further on that diet. So that's what's going to happen. That's where I align with vegans and vegetarians, because we see a lot of them come over because of treatment of animals. Now, I agree with them. I stand side by side with them on this argument all of the time. Agree with them. We need to love and respect and look after nature. And the treatment
Mm,
of animals that happens in big factory farms and feedlots is not okay. Not okay. We need that to end. I stand 100% with them. And that's why, again, look into regenerative farming. Nobody loves these animals more than these farmers, and the welfare, the animal husbandry is second to none. It is amazing. And by the way, it's better treatment of animals than destroying their entire habitat for crops. Okay? So
absolutely.
that's my
Absolutely.
rebuttal to that. Okay? And the diet front. And then the last thing that I will say on that is that we just need to get reconnected with how things operate as a human being. And what are your very first foods as a baby? You rely on this as a baby.
Right, right, right. Milk.
Why
Yeah.
is that? Well, because our brains are made up predominantly of fat, cholesterol, hormone production. Again, what are the building blocks? It's not kale, it's breast milk, right?
Mm,
It's
mm,
not
mm.
fruits, it's
Right.
not vegetables. No, it's mom's got it. It is vital for development of baby,
Right.
and that is very, very fat, nutrient dense breast milk. That's the most, so that's it. As a human being, that should be your top clue. What do we run on optimally? And does it end there? Does it end when we get off of the boob? And then do we just go to vegetables? No. And I'd like to point people to in the direction. because it's a very scary thing when folks just go, oh, I got results because I went vegetarian or vegan for a little while. I lost weight. I feel better. And I haven't actually also thought about, oh, I also cut out all these processed foods that are, super dense with sugar and
Right, right,
garbage,
right.
right? They haven't put one
Yep.
and one together yet, and they keep going down that road. I just, please, I want to bring attention to the book that, because nobody did it better, in my opinion. It's a brand new book that Sally K. Norton did called Toxic Superfoods. And so she's got amazing experiences that I do not have with herself and clients that did overdo uh,
Mm,
vegetables.
mm.
She talks about, I think it's Liam Hemsworth. He was an actor that went hardcore on shakes, like kale shakes and all that stuff. He got oxalate poisoning, right? And that's
Mm,
where,
mm.
because oxalates form crystals, and this is where kidney stones come from. So overdoing vegetables, especially these cruciferous vegetables, they have anti-nutrients in them. They have protective agents in them that you need to watch out for, because again, you are not a ruminant animal and you cannot break them down like ruminant animals can. So just a cautionary tale. So there's my rebuttal.
Okay.
Think about what foods we need as a baby. I know why a lot of vegetarians and vegans go that route, and that's animal treatment. Understand that the best model is regenerative farming. And if you doubt me, please go step foot on the farms and go see how it's done, how your food is made, right? Is really important. Get
Yep.
connected with that. So that's my advice to folks that are going, and you're seeing results on a vegetarian vegan diet. I get it. There's a reason why, but your
Right, right.
your adventure and your education is not over just because you took that step.
Okay.
It's just
Yeah.
beginning. So anyway, I just wanted to cover that first and foremost, Moses. So yeah, and then I can
No, no,
go to
no.
the
That's
that you had. Yeah.
yeah. That's great. It's great. It's great. I'm saddened that our time is just. I got like 5 minutes left. Because then I have another guest. But I'm sad that the time just went by like super fast. Because I told you at the beginning that I didn't have any questions written, and I didn't, and I just now have like a crazy ton. Not That's the benefit of having this intellectually curious type mindset here. So okay, as people are listening to this and they want to learn more about you, what you do, and this regenerative farming, where can they find you?
Yeah, find me at higherhealths.com. So higherhealths with an S.com. And then my Instagram, Facebook is, we've got Higher Healths USA, and we also have Higher Healths Canada. And you can also follow me personally. That's not the wildest journey, but Nigel O'Quinn. You'll find me on Instagram, and follow the regenerative adventures that we go on in battling pharmaceuticals and whatnot. And you know what? Back to your question there really quickly, is these are the most nutrient dense foods. They changed my life. I feel way better than I ever have before. It has now raised two beautiful children that I have with my wife, and we depend on these foods are, the foods that never should have left our diets. So reincorporate them, whether you cook them, whether you eat them raw, or whether you lean on us at higherhealths.com to get the purest, cleanest form in supplement form that's super easy and convenient to take. Come over there. And then you can also find me at Nigel at higherhealths.com. Email me. I'll answer any questions that you have, but reach out. That's how you can find me.
Nigel, it's been a pleasure having you on this podcast. Yeah, I wish I had another hour. I got so many questions, but maybe there's gonna be a round two at some point.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me on, Moses. Appreciate it, man.
Happy Monday to you. Bye.